Okay, so now we're in a Chiricahua National Monument. We just stopped at the visitor center over there, okay? And the lady said we could get a hike for a health pin. I don't know what the hell that was. I think it's designed for the more portly residents of Arizona, of which there are many, to get them to get up off their ass and go take a walk outside instead of driving around and sitting in the AC all the time. Regardless, there was a police officer in there, and he looked kind of nervous. He had some funny glasses on, like they tend to wear, those wraparound ones. And my friend over here was wearing a tie-dye shirt, and cops see that and they automatically think drugs. And cops get real excited when they think about drugs. They get real hot and bothered. Cops are always looking for drugs. So that was kind of a funny situation, kind of weird, kind of made me wish we're still in Mexico where you don't got to deal with shit like that. But regardless, let's look at this wonderful welded tough rhyolite here, which you can see is just forming these beautiful spires and towers. Now you might be asking, how did this form? Well, it was all laid down. It was all volcanic, remember? It's all laid down as magma, cooled relatively quickly at the surface or just below the surface of the earth. Remember, it wasn't deep like granite or diorite. And so it cooled pretty quickly. Didn't cool slow enough for to have a large grain size. Didn't cool slow enough for the crystals that you see in granite to form, the quartz and shits and all that. And so then it was uplifted, and when it was uplifted, it was tilted a little bit, and basically what you're seeing are just cracks. They started out as cracks that have slowly been, over millions of years, I believe this is at least 20 million years old, slowly been, those cracks have been basically exploited by water and plant roots and shit, and the wind and sculpt, just weathering. So basically this was all at least one contiguous block, and then basically just you can see the cracks right there. So those cracks start out as little centimeter long cracks, and they eventually, after 20 million years, they're about 20 feet wide, and you get all kinds of different spires. It's basically just one big mass of rhyolitic magma, cooled and then was slowly weathered and broken down over 20 million years by just the forces of being exposed on a surface of the earth, where you're subject to the elements and whatnot. So this is all one contiguous mass. You can see that. I mean, just imagine that crack right there. Eventually that whole mass right there will be gone, and that will be its own little spire, much narrower than the others. I also want to point out this Arizona cypress growing here. Wonderful tree. It does kind of smell like cannabis. I wonder if that itself would get the cops hot and bothered. I don't know what the cops are going to do when cannabis is legalized, because it does. I mean, they've spent their whole lives prepping to bust people for it, and now it's going to be legal, and it's just not going to have the same allure that it did as far as punishing people and looking at everybody like they're a potential criminal. It's got to be hard to be a cop. Got to be very psychologically tormenting. Regardless, this cypress species is notable because, again, you only really see it in creeks. Not riparian areas, but at least in creeks where they're ephemeral or whether they're year-round. It's because the seeds are spread by water, and it's a beautiful tree. They can get upwards of 3-4 feet diameter, and you get it in northern Mexico, southern Arizona. You got a couple disjunct populations. I believe there's one in New Mexico, and then there's one or two in Texas, in the mountains of Texas. But again, always got the montane thing going on. It's always at relatively higher elevations in relatively dry areas in the American Southwest. So there you go. There's that cypress up close, and again, it does smell like cannabis. It's got a lot of terpenes, a lot of glands in those scales on that foliage, and it's like I said, it smells amazingly skunky. I don't even smoke weed, and I appreciate the smell of this. And again, it makes me let's have a moment of sorrow for all the police officers, who are gonna be so bummed when weed is legal, because what are they gonna harass people about now? At least on traffic stops, you could always just say you smell cannabis, and you could search someone's car and detain them for. Anyway, regardless, here's those cones. They're like little spiky soccer balls. These aren't mature yet. They're still pretty resinous, blue, and waxy. When they do mature, they get more of a woody tissue to them, and then they just kind of open the scales. You see each one of those little horns. Those little horns are called umbos, and they each one corresponds to a scale, and the scales basically open. Like I said, they're plated like a soccer ball, and like a little soccer ball design. They open and then they release their seeds, and the seeds fall down into the wash, and then basically the water transports the seeds. Nothing else really disperses cypress seed except the water. So you get them all in there, and it's again, these are. I'm in love with these trees. There's a couple, I think there's like 12 or 13, maybe 15 different species in North America, California, and down in Mexico. Get Cupressus lusitanica and Cupressus benthamii down in Mexico. Excuse me, Hesperocyparis. They're now in the genus Hesperocyparis. Just a great goddamn tree. You know, they plant them a lot, but I don't mind it. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a decent tree to plant. They grow fast. They can tolerate dry summers. I've planted a ton of these illegally in California in different neighborhoods and shit. Just, you know, wherever there's a vacant lot or, you know, neglected part of a city park or whatever. And of course, those little yellow dots, those are the male pollen cones. So these are the female cones. Those little yellow dots are the male pollen cones. Ooh. Look at that one block. Look at that one block that just fell down over there. See that? He's just waiting. He just fell and then he got lodged. Maybe when that erodes more, he'll eventually just tumble down into the creek. But that's going to sound nice. There's that PLATANUS redia again at Arizona Sycamore. You can see the mullein is just having a banger year, just totally exploiting the fact that it didn't evolve here and it can outcompete a lot of the native stuff that lives here. I'm going to come back and rip all this out when I get back. But let's take a look what's going on here. So that species, you might remember, Perityle, cochisensis, which we tried seeing yesterday, was not blooming on the east side. But here, where it's probably gotten a little bit more moisture and it is a little higher, it seems to be going off. So let's go up there and see what's blooming up there on these pinnacles and at rhyolite. Oh yeah, look at it. Standing right beneath the big cube that's about to fall. Very odd rhyolite too. It looks like it's plated, like it's flaking off. And down here, of course, just an endless cascade of volcanic rock from the reaches further up above. But right there, you got an extremely rare plant, the Perityle cochisensis, in full flower, no soil, just growing completely out the rock. And you know, I don't think we're going to be able to get up there. I think it's a little too high. But maybe there's some more all over the areas and shit. Oh, that QUERCUS HYPOLEUCOIDES is looking real nice over there. Little valley. Oh, it's so nice here. You know, it's not Mexico, but it's pretty nice. It's still pretty nice. Oh, I do like to be around when that thing falls. Oh shit, I didn't see that. It's like a wall up there. That's about to go any decade now. Oh yeah. Gotta love rhyolite. Don't you love rhyolite? If you don't love rhyolite, you're an asshole. I can get the Rus virens and that Bovardia, the red flower down there too. Same flora as on the east side. But basically, okay, let's go through a banger crash course again on how this formation occurs. Basically, each column, you know, it starts out as a little crack, a fissure in a rock, which later gets exploited. Again, remember, weathered, exploited over 20 million years. It's a long ass time, and it's about how old this rock is. In over 20 million years, what it starts out as a little fissure, a little crack, like right there, eventually ends up becoming a large gap between two completely separated columns of rock. And that's how all this occurred. So that's how you get pinnacles. And it can be a little disconcerting, not disconcerting, a little bit discombobulating to figure out how it happens. But you just got to, again, remember, this has been here a long, long time. And, you know, what seems to be completely separate columns of rock were all one contiguous mass 20 million years ago. But, again, it's been that long since these have been getting weathered on and slowly deconstructed by the elements. Okay, so here's one growing a little bit lower. Of course, the phenology is off. Phenology just means seasonality of the flowering time, is you know, in terms of how it applies to the plant. So the phenology is off means it's not flowering. But the one up there is flowering, probably because it's not growing in the shade, gets a little bit more sunlight. And again, these are growing completely out of the goddamn rock. There's no soil in there whatsoever. It's pretty amazing. And this is the ecology of this whole genus. There's only one or two species that don't grow out of solid rock. You know, Perityle amorii is one of them that's an annual. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit diverged from this one. These are all perennial members of the sunflower family that grow completely just, you know, ensconced in the rock. Yeah, there's got to be more. It's making me kind of nervous standing here, like something's going to fall on me, you know. But then again, I grew up in Chicago, and I just kind of have that general anxiety anyway, you know, just as just as a result of life. You just always feel like something bad's going to happen. you know, which is generally true, you know, or someone's out to fuck you somehow, which is also generally true. At least it doesn't hurt to think that way, but you got to approach it relatively lighthearted. You know, don't take yourself too seriously and laugh a little bit. But remember, we're all still doomed. So this over here, I didn't even see this till I had to step back and do a double take. But in this little cave, it appears somebody was hanging out here. I don't know, 400-500 years ago, maybe more. It appears to be a pictograph. Remember, pictographs are painted on with some sort of material, probably pine resin and carbon in this case, charcoal. And petroglyphs are carved in. So who knows what this guy was doing in here? Maybe he was just hanging out, having a vision quest. Maybe he was on a spiritual journey or something. Or maybe he just wanted to get away from the rest of the people he was living with. Who knows? But either way, he hung out in here long enough and drew a bunch of boxes all inside of each other. I wonder what he was thinking about. I wonder how old this is, too. How many hundreds of years? Seems to be pretty old. Oh, yeah, look at that. How much time you think old boy's got left right there? I don't know. Couple dozen thousand years, maybe? Who knows? But as you can see, what happened basically is the magma cooled. This rhyolitic lava cooled. It cooled for whatever reason in a much more dense coagulated mass right here. This is basically one solid knob, and then the rest of the matrix cooled a little bit less dense, and so as a result, there's a point of compromise in the rock right there, and it basically weathered and eroded away faster on the edges than it did right in the center there, because in the center it's much more dense. So remember, this was all one solid mass of liquid magma at one point, and so as a result, you just basically get this kind of pedestal and knob formation. Eventually, that knob will fall down into the wash as that pedestal further continues to erode away. And looking across the wash right there, you can see each one of those gaps, again, started as a tiny fissure. It wasn't that wide, and then just over eons, it just eventually eroded away grain by grain. You know, sand grain by sand grain. Rhyolitic sand grain by rhyolitic sand grain. So we're talking, you know, vast amounts of time, but still a blink of an eye, geologically speaking. Then over here, take a look at this QUERCUS HYPOLEUCOIDES. Again, this is the same plant that I was looking at further down a mountain, which reached statures of about 60 feet tall, but here it's topping out at about 4 feet. You can see the leaves are much smaller as well, and that's because it's growing out of pure rock. There's not much moisture. It's just a more xeric and exposed environment. Also, we're at about 7,000 feet right here, though. Oh yeah, how about that? Look, you got a similar thing going on here. Okay, so you got a thicker density there, which is of course more resistant to erosion and weathering than the surrounding matrix of rock around it. Again, this was all one liquid contiguous mass. Maybe this cooled before the surrounding matrix did. This is more dense. It's obviously, it wasn't equally diffuse throughout the whole. You know, the density wasn't the same, wasn't constant throughout the whole larger matrix of magma as this stuff cooled. So it all just depends on, you know, erosion rates, density of the rock being weathered, and then of course where the fissures originally developed. And that's where you get these kind of pedestal formations, which you know, look somewhat terrifying to stand under. Just imagine that whole thing falling on you. You know, just that whole thing just falling on your ass and breaking you in half. It sure does make for some gorgeous scenery, though, huh? There's a nice illustration of how this happens. See, see how it's much more resistant right in the center, because it's all one concretion. You know, one concretion that's all the same density inside, and then of course it's less dense right there, and you just get the little platelets flaking off. So at some point this might even be a pedestal. You know, as the rest erodes around it and weathers and breaks off and what this shit, it might just be, you know, one pedestal with a much more dense little knob, a little concretion in the center that has been more resistant to the weathering that affected the rocks surrounding it. Yeah, there you go. This is nice. So this is basically those pedestals in the process of being formed. Wonder what this will look like in another 1.5 million years. Okay, so what I take away from this, and if you don't want to hear it, that's say it's just too bad, I guess you kind of shit out of luck, is that these things took eons to create. Literally millions and millions of years. And a human life is just a blink of an eye, comparatively speaking. So all that time that you spend, you know, working a job you hate and commuting 2 hours a day to work, stuck in a fucking can, listening to audiobooks, whatever you do with all that time. I mean, think about it. You really don't have that much time. And instead, you're going to spend it working these shit jobs to buy shit you don't need with money you don't have. It's just, it's kind of a tragedy. I call it the modern American tragedy. You know, you should be spending that time building relationships, laughing your ass off, exploring, learning new things, creating things. Learn everything. You want to learn everything you can about the world around you. You know, there's no end to it. You could spend your whole goddamn life learning everything, and there'd still be some left over. There'd still be a lot left over to get to. So, you know, just make a good point of your time here. Quit chasing a carrot on a stick. You know, you don't need all this shiny shit, stupid bullshit. You don't need that. You know, accumulate experiences, knowledge, and friendships. Not the, you know, shiny bullshit you don't really need. That's all I got. Go fuck yourself. Bye. Okay, and then you can see there's just a single Perityle cochisensis, that rare plant that we need to collect floral tissue for to analyze the DNA, and it's just out of reach on this sketchy ledge with about a 30-foot drop. It's kind of hilarious. Oh my God. Whatever. Yeah, there you go. Same thing. Just about the flower, but you know, you can see it's a little steep. Anyway, down here in the canyon, look, it's my old friend QUERCUS rugosa. This has a pretty wide distribution, goes all the way down into Chiapas, Mexico, this species. But there is some variation. Look at those abaxial surfaces. You got a lot of yellow pubescence. Very rigid. Feels like a piece of cardstock paper. Even got a little bit of fuzz on the adaxial surface on the top of the leaf. This is a great goddamn species of oak. I've grown a ton of these and planted them illegally all over the city. Here's that Arizona cypress again. You can see there were some large trees here, some large cypresses, and they burned. I don't know when that fire was. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I hope I can get out this way. Otherwise, I got to go back the way I came up that sketchy ledge. That beautiful purple color of the rhyolite. Oh, I love it. I don't know why rhyolite is purple. I guess it's got to do with the chemistry in there. But you see it purple a lot. You see this pink and purple color. You see it in the Mojave Desert. You'll see it in areas of Nevada. Yeah, how much you think that would hurt if that thing stung you, huh? Little wasps seem to, I think they're trying to get the water, you know. They're just trying to drink. It's kind of cute. But, you know, they are extremely painful. Oh, yeah, look, he's flexing on me now. Oh, there he goes. Oh. Yeah, so anyway, down here in the canyon where it's a little bit more moist, you get a little bit more shade, you get a little bit more protection from that harsh exposure, as well as those harsh winds. You got a species of succulent in the family CRASSULACEAE. This is either Graptopetalum or Echeveria. There's a large one right there. You can see it just about starting to send up a little inflorescence right there. Real nice to encounter these. In California, of course, we get the genus DUDLEYA, which people were coming over here to poach from Asia. You know, I think it was mostly Korean poachers. You know, they rent the minivan and they just, you know, pluck these off the hills. You know, pluck these off the bluffs, the rocks where they grow above the ocean. That species does that. The species of DUDLEYA, I believe it was DUDLEYA cymosa and DUDLEYA farinosa, and they would just, you know, fill up a couple boxes, throw them in a minivan, and you know, fill up a shipping container with thousands of these things, just denuding habitat, and then I send them over there to the Asian continent to be sold to the middle class, where they could sit in some knob's little planter on his porch or in his greenhouse or wherever the fuck, you know. Pretty tragic. Anyway, that's again, it's Echeveria. It could be Graptopetalum too. I believe it might be Echeveria. No way for me to tell, at least without an inflorescence. There's people who study these, of course, can, but to me it just looks like that typical rosette of beautiful teal-colored leaves. Yeah, so there you go. There's one of these dainty little elusive bastards in full flower. Full frontal nudity. Don't be shy. See, he's got a four-lobed corolla, notable for the Asteraceae. See that one yellow flower that's open? Floret that's open. There's about 30 of them in that flower head. That one single flower just has 4 lobes. That's indicative of the genus Perityle. And there he is, just growing in an impossible place in a little rock crack in this desolate. So again, anytime you see these, they're only going to be growing on rock. You never see them growing on flat ground, and it's because they can outcompete anything else in these vertical rock escarpments. They got a ability to grow completely out of just little cracks in the rock, just exploiting little cracks in the rock, no soil needed, and they of course take advantage of that ability of theirs, and so they can outcompete everything else and get full exposure, full light, no competition, etc. Oh, quite a climb from down there. Anyway, look at this goddamn lichen. How about that? Who knew that a symbiosis between an algae and a fungus could be so romantic? Or so productive? Somewhere beneath that black crust, there's photosynthetic pigments. Just waiting to go off. You got some chlorophyll A in there? What you got in there, huh? What do you got? Who makes the breakfast, I want to know, huh? Okay, you know, it's pretty odd to just see a cypress, and this is a cypress, this is not a juniper, a cypress tree just hanging out, you know, growing as a normal constituent of the overall forest. Because normally, when you see cypresses in Western North America, they're generally growing down in the riparian areas, you know, in the creeks and arroyos and whatnot. And it's because, you know, they need a little bit more moisture than most, and they're a little bit more sensitive to drying out, you know. But up here, it's 7,000 feet. The summers are a little bit more mild, and they do get summer rain, so it's just growing as a normal constituent of the forest, along with the Pinus sombroides and the Arctostaphylos pungens and the Quercus hypoleucoides and what this shit. So it's pretty interesting for me to see this, because I've been studying these trees for the past decade, and normally you almost always see them growing, at least the majority of them growing in the creeks and in the little gullies and whatnot. But here it's growing just as a normal part of the forest, you know. And that's probably what the normal cypress forest was like back in the Pleistocene, when you know, summers were milder, there was more moisture. It was just generally a different climate. But now, as the last 10,000 years, as the climate has heated up and dried out, they've been restricted to the arroyos and the riparian zones. But you know, up here at 7,000 feet, they're doing fine. Just normal cypress forest. Hesperocyparis arizonica, also a Cupressus arizonica. The beautiful Lampropeltis, a beautiful king snake. He did just musk on me. I feel sorry for the guy, but I gotta take a couple pictures of him, a couple money shots, because he's beautiful, you know. But then I'll let him go. Plus, you know, I mean, for Christ's sakes, he musked all over me, you know. Now it smells like an ass here, but you know, he's gorgeous. Just coming out for some nice evening hunting up here at 7,000 feet. So I'll take some pictures, then I'll let him go. What a beauty he is. Do you know how beautiful you are? You know, I just want to take a couple money shots, that's all. Okay? And then I'll let you go. I was not going to hurt you. But you're so beautiful. Okay? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're so beautiful. I forgive you for musking me. I forgive you for spraying me with that foul-smelling odor that came out of your cloaca. Did that come out of your cloaca? Did they come out of your cloaca? It sure smelled like it came out of your cloaca. Where are you trying to go? I don't know where you're going. Well, you're probably just trying to get away from me. I don't blame you. Oh, you're such a beautiful Lampropeltis. Such a beautiful Lampropeltis. Okay, you're gonna go get some dinner? Huh? All right, hey, thanks for letting me kick it with you. I appreciate that. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice of you. Beautiful king snake. Ooh, what do you sniff? You sniffing some voles? What do you smell? Mice? What is it? What do you think it is? All right, I'll quit harassing you. Hey, have a nice evening, all right? Go fuck yourself.